Welcome to Matters Financial, Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. I'm always grateful. We've got a big Mindspeak this Saturday. We'll be hosting the Cabinet Secretary, Treasury Henry Rotich. My co-host is Joshua Oigara of Kenya Commercial Bank. We're going to start a little bit earlier than normal. The main session will start at 9 a.m. Breakfast from about 8:30, so do try and be there on time because normally we do start at 10, so just bear that in mind. If you haven't had a look at Albert Mugo's Mindspeak session, we've uploaded the main presentation. We're getting to the Q&A right now, but do take a look. Very quiet, softly spoken, but sketched out a very powerful story. Home thoughts. I like this photograph from Truth Slinger. I love the sunrise in Nairobi, and I can't work out whether some of the extraordinary colours you see, particularly around the time of the full moon, are also being enhanced because of pollution. But it's a beautiful photograph. The BBC NewsHour tweeted this photograph. What happens to the human body in the world's largest desert, Antarctica? Of course, this is a sad story about someone who lost their life there, and that took me to Hunter S. Thompson. Have a look at the photograph. We are all alone, born alone, die alone, and in spite of true romance magazines, we shall all someday look back on our lives and see that in spite of our company, we were alone the whole way. I do not say lonely, at least not all the time, but essentially. And finally, alone. This is what makes your self-respect so important. And I don't see how you can respect yourself if you must look in the hearts and minds of others for your happiness. Have a look at that photograph again of Antarctica. 4 Darks in Red, 1958, Mark Rothko. I'm a great fan. He says of pictures must be miraculous. Indeed, 4 Darks in Red is miraculous. Political reflections. Donald Trump has soared to a new high of 41% according to a new poll, and I think he maxes out there actually. National poll by CNN found that 4 out of 10 Republicans now say they would back him to be the president. The tycoon's support is more than double that of his nearest rival, Ted Cruz, who trails on 19%. My conclusions are, I once spent the evening with Donald Trump, a very beautiful lady called Cosima von Bülow, and a close friend called Lynn Menuhin at Tramps, which is a nightclub in London. Iranian President Rouhani meets Pope Francis, and this is what was said. I thank you very much for the visit. I have high hopes in peace, the Pope told Rouhani, according to the Catholic News Service. Rouhani responded by asking the Pope to pray for him. And there you have the difference in the world view, and I think it was a very nuanced, powerful way of projecting a very defined and different worldview when you consider the beheaders, for example. I'll put up a photograph of President Rouhani. I wrote a piece on the 28th of October 2013, Barack Obama and Hassan Rouhani, the 2 Husseins. And that took me to Weiwei, what's in a name? I love this. A name is the first and final marker of individual rights, one fixed part of the ever-changing human world. A name is the most basic characteristic of our human rights. No matter how poor or how rich, all living people have a name, and it is endowed with good wishes, the expectant blessings of kindness and virtue. The actions of the Russian Air Force in response to the request of the Syrian leadership have really helped to turn around the situation in the country, helped towards reducing the territory controlled by terrorists. That's Lavrov, who really is, whatever your political persuasion, you have to admit, a tremendous foreign minister. Conclusions. I think Putin and Assad are stringing it along. patrons of the opposition seemingly unable to reconcile themselves to shifting facts on the ground. And I think the longer they take to reconcile, the less they're going to have ultimately to parlay with. International markets, George Soros, the man who broke the Bank of England and according to some helped precipitate the Asian financial crisis, has been warned off going to war on the renminbi by Beijing. Soros's war on the renminbi and the Hong Kong dollar cannot possibly succeed. About this there can be no doubt, read a front page opinion piece by a Commerce Ministry researcher in the overseas edition of the People's Daily, headline declaring war on China's currency. Last week, Soros told Bloomberg TV he had bet against the S&P 500, Asian currencies and commodity-linked economies while going long on US treasuries. I'll put up a chart of the offshore and the onshore renminbi that Holger very kindly tweeted. Holger also tweeted that German 2-year yields hit a fresh lifetime low at minus 0.46% after Draghi blasts critics. Apple investors have no clue what to do with the numbers after the initial spike. Apple's stock is trading sideways. Have a look at the price action around the release of those numbers. The company sold 74.8 million of its flagship devices in the final 3 months of 2015. In the same period in 2014, the company sold 74.46 million iPhones, meaning sales were essentially flat. Sales of the iPhone account for about 2/3 of Apple's revenues, which worries some investors. Apple is a one-product company, declared Berenberg. Apple posted record quarterly revenues of $75.9 billion, record quarterly profits of $18.4 billion, but warned revenues would fall this quarter. CEO Tim Cook, our financial position has never been stronger. He said Apple had the mother of all balance sheets, with assets totaling $293 billion, with $205 billion of that in cash. Wow. And he also said the current company currently has 1 billion active devices, a major milestone, he said. As well as slowing iPhone sales, Apple reported it sold far fewer iPads in the last 3 months of 2015. And I took this photograph of the time I was in the Tsavo, and I lent the Maasai the iPad to take some photographs. And then we were in Tsavo East, and this second photograph is of sunset, Lugard Falls, Tsavo East, and it really was a wonderful Christmas, I must say. Let's go to the currency markets. Let's move on. Euro 108.71, dollar index around 99, Japanese yen 118.21, Swissy 101.71, pound 143.36, and the commodity currencies have responded higher a little bit. 0.7029 is the Aussie, Indian rupee 67.955, South Korean won 1202.50, Rial 407.16, Egyptian pound 782.86, and the rand 16.40. Dollar yen, let's have a look at that. Let me put up a 1-year chart, and I think I'm bullish the yen. I think we're going to 105, and I would sell some out of the money calls at 125. Dollar Canada, of course, a strong rebound with a rebound in oil. Last time I checked, 141.25. I think 140 would be the optimal place to sell it. My target remains 155. Sterling, let me put up a 1-year chart. That's of course rebounded, but it could break down at any time now at 143.38. Last time I had a look. Gold, I put in brackets WOA, because that's had a really strong rally, hasn't it? 1120.85 now. And obviously that was on market concerns, geopolitical concerns, and that kind of thing has seen people go into gold. Oil prices rise on hint of willingness to cut supplies. Have a look at the chart. That's a more longer term chart. Have a look at this 5-day chart as the shorts get squeezed. I learned from Bloomberg, one salmon costs more than a barrel of oil as slump deepens. This is Norway. Salmon is fetching record high prices because of low supplies and a weak currency. As the seafood industry news site Laxon.no reported this month, oil has fallen so low and salmon risen so high that one standard 4.5 kilogram fish now costs more than a barrel of crude when measured in kroner. Let's move on to Africa. The Congo Republic's ruling party confirmed President Denis Sassou Nguesso as its candidate for March elections. Well, what a surprise. I'll put up a photograph of President Denis Sassou Nguesso. And I think he's also the father-in-law to President Kabila across the water. If you're interested in learning a bit more about him, there's a link from Wikipedia. As Zimbabwe swaps hyperinflation for deflation with US dollar. This is the FT. People have less money, whether denominated in vanishing Zimbabwe dollars or rock-solid American ones, he says. As long as there's no production in the economy, it doesn't matter what currency you use. William Wallace, who's a friend, has written a piece in the FT, Smart Africa. Smartphones pave way for huge opportunities. The mobile phone is to sub-Saharan Africa what the steam train was to 19th century Europe. The mechanical workhorse driving social and economic transformation. Talking about, universally available infrastructure, hundreds of technology startups have sprung up across the continent to plough new trade routes and seek breakthrough innovations. In parallel, there's mounting competition between global tech companies IBM, Google, Facebook, China's Tencent for a slice of what are some of the world's fastest growing IT markets. Married to this explosion of creative endeavor, the continent's demographics, over 70% of the fast urbanizing population are under 30. The first thing they want is a phone and the next is information, I said. Armed with both, Africa's youth are hooking up to networks far beyond their immediate communities, creating new outlets for music, TV, fashion and social comment. What the Great Western Railway was to Victorian England, the mobile networks are to Africa, says Miles Morland, who's one of the oldest investors in the continent. I said we're in an evolutionary phase. We have not yet found the ways of creating the kind of commercial value US companies have been so brilliant at doing, but we are moving in the right direction. In February 2012, I wrote a piece, There Are Two Africas Now. The average age in sub-Saharan Africa is 20. These folks are all connected, surfing the now in a way that is breathtaking. I work not more than 10 minutes from the Norfolk Hotel. It's urban, highly aspirational, tech-savvy. After all, Kenya was the laboratory that gave birth to the mobile money sensation M-Pesa. It's a hub. The traffic can be frightful, as it has been of late, but it's on the move. South African all shares down 6.24% this year. Dollar Rand, I think he's trying to sell the Rand close to 16. Have a look at the chart. South Africa has imposed a year-long leopard hunting ban. I don't know why they allow these things. It's appalling. Let me show you a photograph of a leopard in a tree in the Samburu that I took. Egyptian pound 783, Egyptian EGX 30 is down 15.84% this year. Nigeria devaluation bets tempered as Emefiele keeps Naira's peg. He reminds me of a chap with his finger in the dike, and he thinks he's lasted this long, and I don't think it's, at some point it's going to collapse around his ears. President Buhari is in town yesterday, and if I was seeing him, and I should because I'm a member of the Kenya National Chamber, maybe I'll get down there, I would say he's done tremendous things, but putting his whole government at risk and on the line over this devaluation, I think, is wrong. 3-month Naira forward strengthened the most on record against the dollar after Emefiele gave no indication in the Monetary Policy Committee statement released on Tuesday that he's ready to ease controls on the currency. It seems like, although there's been a lot of criticism of this, it really hasn't gotten through to the governor. Some of the wording was a bit worrying when he talks about his unyielding support for the current policies and so on. That's quite bad news. 3-month non-deliverable contracts rallied as much as 9% the most ever on a closing basis, to 229 per dollar, before paring gains to 229.50. Forwards fell after President Buhari, who's backed Emefiele's policies, hinted in his 2016 budget speech on December the 22nd that he would accept a devaluation so that the central bank would introduce some flexibility to its exchange rate policy. 3-month forwards were as strong as 208.38 in early December. Nigeria's growth fell to 3% last year. It's going to be at 0, I think, this year. They are looking to raise $1 billion from the Eurobond market, and Cameron says the Eurobond roadshow could be a wake-up call. They'll probably be surprised at the extent of investors' confusion over their policies. Nigerian all shares down 16.79% so far. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index up 0.16% year to date. Let's move on to Kenya. IMF has extended Kenya's existing credit facility as a new one is discussed. We are now working on extending it for a few weeks just because we're in dialogue with the government to present a new program to our board before the end of this quarter. This is Armando Morales. We agreed with the authorities that it was prudent to maintain that insurance during the discussion for the new program. Central Bank of Kenya, of course, calmed volatility in the markets last year after hiking its benchmark lending rate by 3 percentage points to 11.50, and has increased foreign reserves without turning to the IMF standby loan. Shilling was only down 11% last year against the dollar, far less than everybody else. That's why I call it the Teflon shilling. Unlike other African nations, Kenya is not reliant on commodity exports to Asia. Agriculture has become a more dynamic sector, said Armando. Weather patterns have been more benign. I wrote about this on the weekend. Kenya's net present value of debt, which reflects the debt's maturity profile, was still below 45% of GDP. Kenya remains at low risk of debt distress, even with the additional information that has been incorporated. The yield on Kenya's debut Eurobond that was issued in 2014 was quoted at 9.096%. I think it's a buy above 9. It got as high as 9.53. Over the weekend, I said another point to note is that we've gotten lucky with the weather. I once joked that to be a good economist in Kenya, you need to be a good meteorologist. The way I see it is that we've been really lucky. There is plenty of collateral damage from the El Nino weather pattern, but we have gotten lucky. The agri-economy is doing just fine. Africa Confidential, in its latest edition, wrote, secondly, the commodity price crash cannot all be blamed on China, and it is not blighting all Africa's exports. For example, export earnings from cocoa, coffee and tea look set to hold up in both the increasingly lucrative specialist markets and in the traditional bulk purchase markets. So the dream of oil is now over the horizon, but there is a lot of positive momentum out there, and it's not getting drowned out by the cacophony, but is beginning to rise above it. Kenya Airways is to cut jobs as part of its turnaround strategy. It's a comprehensive plan looking at all things that will see us turn around through various measures, including cost management, refinancing business, commercial and sales efficiency, and asset sales. Kenya shilling, steady as you like, 102.40. Nairobi all share down 6.2% year to date, fell 0.34% yesterday. NSE 20 down 7.31% year to date. Serena Hotels tweeted this: the amazing weather, the sandy beaches and the blue waters. Serena Beach, not Bassam. I lost myself to a girl in a bikini who played very good table tennis in that very hotel when I was a young boy. But that's fond memories. Imperial Bank owners to pump in 10 billion shillings towards the bank's recovery plan. Let's see it when we see it. Dr. Jorogi said at a press conference, yes, they say they have a proposal to pump in 10 billion. We wanted enough resources to reopen the bank in November, but it didn't happen because no resources came. We told them we have an account here, but put the money there and we get moving, but nothing happened, giving us the impression that they were unwilling to move in that direction. We had no choice but to take the direction we have outlined. I will say it now loud and clear that there is an account here at the CBK, and indeed, if there is 10 billion out there, put it in that account, then we can talk. Mr. Poppet, who is the chairman, said the regulator should equally provide a clear recapitalisation and recovery framework, noting that to make such a huge investment still requires a proper framework. As with any investment, the injection of such amounts of new capital will have to be made within a clear financial, legal framework, and this may bring with it some financial, legal and regulatory hurdles. So, let's see what happens next. Mindspeak this Saturday.